Retired Army Colonel Douglas Mcgregor is the recipient of a Bronze Star with a V for Valor for his leadership in the Battle of 73 Easting as the Squadron Operations Officer during the Gulf War, in which, with 10 tanks and 13 Bradleys, his unit destroyed almost 70 Republican Guard armored vehicles in just 23 minutes. He served in the Army from 1976 until 2004. In his latest book, Warrior's Rage, The Great Tank Battle of 73 Easting, he makes the case that the failure to finish the battle with the Republican Guard along the 73 Easting in 1991 led to Iraq's second major confrontation with the United States in 2003, resulting in 2 hollow victories and the tragic bloodletting that continues today in Iraq. In a PowerPoint presentation he delivered to select members of Congress on October 6, 2009, he said, "The best we can do is withdraw our forces from the publicly stated understanding that how the Afghans govern themselves is their business." Talk about a guy with guts. For your service, your candor, and your willingness to speak out, your patriotic dissent, thank you for your service. You are a true American hero. Colonel, thank you for joining us this evening.
Oh, happy to be here.
Now, we've heard so many different opinions, statements from people in supposed positions of authority recently. We have Obama bombing Libya, while Secretary Gates says it's not essential to the U.S. security. We have Obama saying that, or at least trying to convince us, it would seem, he wants us out of Afghanistan. And Petraeus is talking about us being there for 20 years. I'm a little confused. I mean, what's really going on here? Is there somebody in charge right now? Who's behind the wheel?
Well, I don't think you're the Lone Ranger. I think the American people are very confused. We've had a series of interventions that really began shortly after the Gulf War in 1991. If we can recount a little history very briefly, we intervened, as some of your audience members will remember, in Somalia, ostensibly for the purpose of feeding starving people, and suddenly that mission, after President Clinton was elected, was transformed into a nation-building mission inside Somalia. That, of course, went very badly. And subsequently, we ended up going into Haiti, then Bosnia-Herzegovina, eventually Kosovo. In each of these incidents, the justification for going in was usually on lofty moral grounds. We ended up treating the area as a laboratory for social experimentation, trying to install our notions of Western-style democracy.
It's a little ironic that we get conservatives cheerleading for all these actions that are really nothing more than exercises in liberal nation-building.
Well, it's sort of liberal imperialism. It's kind of altruistic imperialism. And this continues, you know, really today in Afghanistan. Initially, we went into Afghanistan for the purpose of really expunging very few numbers of people who were connected to al-Qaeda. For various reasons, we didn't get the top leadership that successfully escaped into the mountains of the Hindu Kush, which is not new. That happened to the British. It happened to the Russians under the Tsar's time. People have always been escaping into those mountains, but we essentially accomplished our objective, which was to drive them out and make Afghanistan inhospitable to them. Then we went into Iraq, ostensibly for the purpose of removing Saddam Hussein, and suddenly that was transformed into yet another nation-building mission, which went very, very badly, cost $1 trillion, thousands of lives. And today, much to the chagrin of Americans, let's be frank, Iran is now the dominant influence in Arab Iraq. And
so
the Kurdish problem is...
Who's behind all this? What's the American authority really determining our foreign policy then?
You have a small ruling elite, if I could call them that sits in the Senate, in the House, that is backed by a great deal of money and people primarily in New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. And these people are interested in what I would call Wilsonian-style foreign policy, the notion that America has some sort of higher obligation to go beyond its borders and, with the use of military power, to install governments and change societies to the satisfaction of this small minority. And remember, we're not a draft force. We're a professional force. And the professional force is increasingly remote from the understanding or awareness of many Americans. The pain, if you will, is not felt by a large number of people, and so they could pretty much do what they wanted with this instrument.
Okay, we've only got a minute left, but I want to show you a quote from former Assistant Secretary of Defense Lawrence Korb. He testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee in 2007, in which he said the decision to escalate or to surge more ground troops into Iraq will only put additional strain on the ground forces and threatens to leave the United States with a broken force that is unprepared to deal with other threats around the world. We had the surge in Iraq. We had another surge of 30,000 troops in Afghanistan. I understand we had a little difficulty scrambling planes for Libya now. Is he wrong, or are we really too stretched thin to deal with any real threat that would arise?
We're stretched thin, I think, primarily in human terms.
Okay.
People are worn out. They're exhausted. They're tired of these repeated deployments. And to be frank...
And there's the consequence there for the logistics, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's horribly expensive. You have at least 1 or 2 contractors for every serving soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine. And again, that's something else that should be questioned. But the bottom line is people are very tired, and they don't see the point.
Yep.
Because let's be frank, most of these people really don't want us in their country.
Right. Outstanding. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Colonel. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That was